How are you? Good. Everybody's alive and well and looking a little perky, huh? Well, thank you for understanding when my mother wasn't feeling so good. I'm like torn when that happens because I need to be there for her when that happens. And then, are we up at all, Dominic? I always feel like I got a big mouth, but some people tell me I talk quiet. I'm like, me? I don't know. I don't think that's how it is. But anyways, she's doing pretty well. But when she's going to be 86, and so the flu is like something that doesn't go over that well, right? So, but she's a trooper, and she's doing really well. And thank you for understanding. I don't like canceling class for nothing, but sometimes it'll happen. So always check Facebook, the website, phone a friend, because we try to get a hold of people, but you don't. I'm like, who all, and I'm trying to remember. So it was good that people understood. Or get a hold of Ashley; she'll help you out with knowing what's going on too. Okay. All right. So I had to reboot some of the things because I missed one thing, and then now we gotta get at some stuff here when it comes to talking about recovery from the aspect of abuse. That's what we're going to be going into. And we'll be doing some of that in May also. And it's a harder thing, I guess, when we talk about areas that we've been abused. We have to acknowledge that, right? Sometimes it's really hard talking about areas of abuse and we realize we were the abuser. That's never any fun either. That's like, oh man, I didn't think I was. Yeah, you were. And so there's something about that. But I want to kind of give a warning up front because sometimes the victim child inside of us is like, let's talk about abuse, because we want to be validated. We want to be recognized. We want somebody to go, yeah, that was abuse. And sometimes that's what's needed. But after 5 years of doing that, there needs to be like a journey over the bridge. There needs to be something, not to belittle it, not to say, well, that shouldn't count anymore, but it's called closure. That's what it's called. And so the things that we relive are the things that are not closed. There has to be some type of closure that takes place. The things that are closed, we can remember, and we're like, yeah, that really stunk. Might even have a tear come down. But I've already moved on from that. Am I not right? But a big aspect of abuse recovery is like you can bring closure to something, but still have the after effect of the lack of trust, right? So let's say this summer you're walking around by the little bridge and the tree out there, and we don't have them around here that I know of, but rattlesnake is there. You don't know it's there. All of a sudden you hear a sound and boom, you get nailed. Someone saves your life. This is a real dramatic story I'm making up as we're going. And I'm like, yeah, you're in the movie. And so you're saved, right? And so, but anytime you go near something that has rocks with a little bit of hidden area, you're going to feel something, even if you're not recalling the trauma directly. It's going to be like, no, I'm good. I don't want to go in that grassy area, or I don't want to go near the rocks or whatever. Even if you're not attaching it to that, it still has left an area where we don't trust. When we say that's a big one, we don't trust. Here's what's intense, though, is there's one area of not trusting because the rattlesnake is its own entity, and it nailed you, right? You lived through it, yay. But when you're the one nailing yourself and you don't trust yourself, where are you going to go? You can't be like, well, I'm not going to go by the rocky area or the whatever, because wherever you go, there you are. You can come, I'm here too. Snap. Wherever you go, there you literally are. And so there's something about collectively taking the anxiety from each one of those feelings and ramping up from it, and we don't know that we're doing it. then we'll get so much anxiety, we're shaken inside, but our brain is not connecting why we have this anxiety. We go in, maybe go to the ER, maybe go to a psychologist or something like that, and you tell them, I have all this anxiety. Well, what's going on? I don't know. I just have always had anxiety issues. Well, we have to identify what is it that you're not trusting, because peace brings safety. Who's the Prince of Peace? Jesus. How does he give peace? Not like the world gives peace, he says. It's a different kind of peace. In fact, the kind of peace that he gives passes all understanding. Like your brain, you're like, I don't know why I'm at peace right now. I should be freaking out. But you're not, because his peace hit you in a way where the word shalom means nothing's lacking, nothing's broken, nothing's left wanting. But we can look around by sight and go, that's broken, that's left wanting, this ain't working right or whatever, and get all anxious. But when his anointing of peace comes on you, suddenly you're like, yeah, I see all that, but I'm okay. I'm going to sleep. Or the words I always say to Ari, I say, I'm taking all this to bed. You know, it's my announcement when I'm going to bed. Don't ask me for anything else. I'm going in that room. And so there's something about that kind of peace where, you know, your thoughts can't overpower you. But if you're not trusting your surroundings, that's one type of anxiety, right? And it's mixed with not trusting yourself. Now we're in trouble. Jesse, he's the drummer, he's the praise leader, he's the administrator of our worship here, and he's my youngest biological son. And he always says, you know, he'd watch different stuff when he was younger over his friends or whatever, and maybe it was scary or whatever. He says, I don't understand it. You know, he said, especially if it's a white person movie. It's all, he's like, they got to go in there. They got to go in the office and open the door. They have to see what's going on or whatever. And then somebody will disappear, and then he said back then it was always Billy. Billy, where are you? And then they have a phrase like that. He's like, get out of there. You're stupid. You know, it's that type of thing, right? So, but there's something about not trusting your surroundings. It sounds like, Billy, where are you? And suddenly you're like, I am alone. Something here is going to bite me. Something here is going to mess me up. Something's going to happen. Okay, well, what you got inside then that you can trust? I got nothing. So then it creates the fight, flight, or freeze. Freezes deer in the headlight. Right? Because, you know, there's something about it where deer, you just wish they had enough brain power to be like, I'll wait till the semi goes by, right? Because the dumb thing is, there might be a semi and a car, but then there isn't anything for a long time again. We'll cross over then, but they don't, right? So something happens where they're coming up. They're like, here's our trail. We got to make it across. And they get up, and then all of a sudden, deer in a headlight. And they're froze because they don't trust their instinct. We've interrupted their instinct because that's what they normally follow. They go by smells and whatever. And the road, the blacktop, is not their domain. So then they can make a really foolish choice and bolt out. And they're supposed to stay together as a herd. So you can see they're like, you got to cross. I don't know if I can get across. Well, I'm turning around. And then they're all looking at each other like, I don't know what to do. I mean, it's very high stress. And then you got the squirrels. Please. You're like, not now, buddy, not now, not now, not now. And then they'll just turn around, right? Or they'll come just enough on the road, you know, I could get past you. And then they bolt under your car. And you kind of go, you know, because if you hear dun dun, then you know, well, they didn't make it. And one of the number one problems with women is we are nurturers. And when it comes to car accidents, instead of hitting it, we'll dodge it and end up in the ditch and total our cars. Talk to insurance agents. They'll tell you that's one of the number one things. I had to save the bunny. Bunny going down. I ain't wrecking my car over the bunny. I'll try to avoid. But I'm not going to slam on the brakes and let somebody rear end me. You just kind of do the, dun dun, you know, and then, sorry. And I drive on. Right? But if we're like the deer in the headlight, it's just kind of like, headlight, I don't understand this because I go by the moon, I go by the smells in the woods, I go by the trail, and suddenly there's this thing coming at me and I'm froze. That's also the deer not trusting its instinct. So trauma disrupts the trust of ourself. We're out of sorts when that happens. We're out of our zone. We're out of like, here's safety. And things don't smell right, they don't feel right, whatever. And then we don't trust ourselves. And that's where peace has to be restored. That's where closure has to happen. That's where understanding has to take place. One of the kids I had in my foster home was, somebody had died in their family by getting run over by a car. And they just heard the story, they weren't there, whatever, but it was still traumatic loss, right? And they were pretty little when it happened, but when cars would go by, their body would respond like that. They could be from here to the doorway, but it was just like, and they'd stand at, like, when you got to cross the street, they hated the whole push the button and wait till the little man tells you when to cross. They didn't like that, because do you trust that? I mean, we have to say we're trusting on a machine, on a timer, that the county sets the timer. That's why in certain towns you're like, are you serious? I'm hitting every red light. Because they put it on a timer and they try to make those timers go a certain speed. And sometimes their speed time is off and you start stop and you're all over the place. But there's something to just totally trusting that. To be gliding around in your car all smooth. I totally trust that. I don't. But not trusting something and having anxiety to not trust it is a different thing. So what happens is a lack of trust in the lower level. If you're going on a spectrum, you're way over here in the lower level. What it does is say, pay attention. You look at your surroundings, you're like, yeah, something ain't right. You pay attention. That's the lower level of anxiety with lack of trust. It's like a warning. You start moving over this way. It's like, I don't like it, I don't like it, I don't like it, and it just, your whole body will respond way over here, and there's no form of trust inside of yourself. Now, abuse will definitely do that. Because abuse, if you're being slapped around as a little kid, or you're raped, incest, and I can just name things. You know the things that happen to people, and what happens is it creates a lack of self-awareness, like a deer that's lost its trail. And then people will come along when you're having an anxiety attack or panic attack or whatever and be like, just get on the trail. You should be able to do that. I think you're making up excuses. Yeah, well, if you weren't traumatized like they were, maybe you don't know what you're talking about. Right? There's a point, though, we have to give this a try. Now, I used to run in the rafters of our barn, which is okay when you got tons of bales of hay underneath you. You fall in the hay. It's no big deal. But we played tag on the rafters of the barn. I don't think my parents knew that. Barefoot running across, you're it, or whatever, and it's a long way down. And at the same time, no fear. There was no knowledge that I should have fear because no one fell. Right? But I climbed a tree when I was little, and my parents couldn't get me out of the tree. It was a big old pine tree. And when you're looking up and you're climbing something, that's cool. You just keep going. Then all of a sudden you get to the top and it's like, that's a long way down. But my mom said I'd swing back and forth to make the tree wiggle like that because I'd be right up at the tip and no fear. No fear. Well, there's been some falls. There's been some things. There's been some accidents, some things that traumatize the body that said, oh, that's what that feels like to hit the pavement. Oh, that's what it feels like. One time I was driving ATV in the mountains of Colorado, and a truck whipped around the corner. I had a three-wheeler on top of it, so you don't balance the same. Thank you. I've just been doing a lot of talking, so there's a scratchiness. But there's something, something was coming around down the mountain. I'm coming up the mountain hugging this, and it's quite a drop, like from here down, right, ceiling down, and all rocks in the bed of this creek. And I got my little boy on the front. Right? So my thought pattern is this: I hit the brakes, I'm kind of skidding, turning like this, and the guy's trying to slow down enough so he can actually take the corner. So a lot of times what happens is people will go to the mountains and they don't realize there's a way you have to shift. So they count on their brakes. And then they can't get everything, and the car goes faster, and they're trying to brake and shift, my friend. But they don't know how to do that. And so I don't think this was happening. Plus, these guys look like, they're about to party or just got done partying. And so they whooped around the corner in order to avoid hitting the truck. I had to turn, and I remember going over. It like everything went slow motion. Slow motion. And all I thought was, Jesse. So he has to stay on this thing. Or I have to throw him to the side so he doesn't get run over, if it flips. So I'm trying to use my weight as it's going over to make sure that this isn't going to flip over on the two of us. And it just felt like slow motion. But I'm sure if somebody saw it, it was like boom, boom, that's how it happens. Just like if there was a car accident out here, people would be like, and then he hit the brakes, and I saw this guy coming from this. And we have this big description. But really, if you play it in real time, it was like boom, boom, crash. But everybody saw it from a different angle, and they have a drawn-out story of what their experience was because it felt like slow-mo. And so for me, that's what happened. And I knew the balance had to be changed, and he's leaning back. He's holding onto the handlebars. I got him, and I'm pulling back, and I'm leaning way back like this as it's going down. So now I know it's not going to flip over on the top, but I know I can't stay on it, or it's going to do something else. So I throw my body off and hit the rocks. Needless to say, that hurt. Oh, did that hurt? Because river rocks are not always smooth in Colorado. And so there was just mountainy, like pokey rocks in there. And even if it's a small gravel thing, you hit that right and that goes into your back, it's not fun. So I remember just like throwing my body, and I could see him. And here's my son. And then when it lands, I'm laying there like, and Verd's coming back with the other two kids, and, they're coming down to try to, because he just turned back and saw me just go, whoop, and didn't know what the result was. And so he comes over there. And I will tell you, I did not expect that truck at all. I trusted my environment. I trusted it probably a little bit too much, because in Wisconsin, I'd ride a motorcycle through the cornfields. Who are you going to run into? Who's going to jump out and go, boo? Who's going to do anything? I mean, you're like running, you crash it, whatever, you pick it back up. And, that's how I was raised. And so that same truster trusted the atmosphere. And I wasn't thinking there could be a guy coming around the corner and we could get really hurt. But then, as I get up, I realize my breathing's a little bit different. Well, later on, going to a chiropractor, he's like, you have a cracked rib right here. I'm like, oh, that explains some things. Just when I breathe, it would go sharp. There's not really a whole lot they can do with it. They're just like, well, wait it out. And but as soon as we hit and we landed like that, I said, Jesse, are you okay? He goes, that was fun. I go, okay, honey, but we're not doing it again. It was like that. Stairs, I'm very watchful of stairs, but I'm not allowing myself to be so watchful that I'm over here like, there's stairs. These are funky, especially if you're trying to minister and you're talking to people and you can just come right off the edge here. There's like a thing. And so I watch for that, but I don't have anxiety about it. There's certain things, though, that do feel a little more intense. And you might have those things in certain areas, too. Climbing up a silo. I could write a book on falls, right? Climbing up a silo, but, I'm a young person who chose to wear my rubber boots, because you wear those to the barn, because if you get manure on it, you can spray them off, even in the winter. So, but when you're going up rungs that have ice on them to go throw down silage, and you're in a tube, and I'm coming up doing this or whatever, and all of a sudden I slip. And as I'm falling, I'm literally in a U shape. My legs are this way, and here's my head. And I'm coming down, and there's no silage below. There's cement. Kapow, right? And I laid there for a long time, knocked the wind out of me or whatever. I didn't want to go up that chute anymore. And guess what I don't like, for some odd reason? Small enclosed areas. I have to talk myself through those areas. I'm like, I kind of feel like a big chick to begin with. Maybe I think I'm bigger than I am, though, in my mind, because I don't like small areas. Just saying, right? Because there are people who are bigger than me, they're taller than me or whatever, they go in those small areas. But I'm just like, I ain't gonna fit, it's not, because the feeling is that fall and the absolute loss of control, right? Now, if I'd have remembered it as, and then I catch myself, woo, that was a close one, that might even be funny. But when you hit and your breath is out of you, it's not funny at all. And then what really seals the deal is the days of pain after that. If you're hobbling, because pain then will say, you should have watched out for that. You should have not trusted that. You should have, right? So let's take it to, now that's physical pain that will break trust on yourself and that. But what if you're in a relationship and it stunk? And you made different choices and you felt like it was really right. But in the end, you shoulda, coulda, woulda. That's how you feel about it. And then I ain't doing that again. Well, but you go through a couple of relationships, I ain't doing that again. Well, who are you going to date? Because after a while, the sensation is like, I don't trust nobody. I'll stay by myself. Lonely, whatever, but we're like, I don't want to have to work through that. See how it affects? But who don't we trust in that the most? We don't trust ourselves because somehow we were at fault for losing control on most of those. I shoulda, coulda, woulda. I should have paid more attention coming around the corner. I should have this, I should have that. So if we recognize that when we're working through very painful things or very fearful things to overcome any form of abuse, there's that attachment of the loss of control. So what in your life happened that temporarily, for a moment, or over a period of time, you felt like you had no control? I can't control this. This feels like I'm falling down the silo chute. It's like those dreams where you're falling and you can't, it's like, I'm gonna hit, and all of a sudden you wake up and you're like, oh, that was a close one, right? But they will tell you, thank you. They will tell you that that's a sign, psychologically, of a loss of control when you have dreams like that, right? It's a predictor of like something's going to happen and you have no control. Talk about anxiety that can come out of that. So the dreams that we have, or should we call them nightmares that we have? I don't know what it has to do with the horse, but it's at night. It's a night rider maybe, I don't know. But we have that where we wake up and everything in our body feels like it's so real. Now, you have stupid because you ate too much pizza dreams. You have those stupid dreams where you're like, that was so stupid. It was weird. That was so stupid. But the dreams where you're like, I don't know if I can breathe. Like the time I talked about where a person Vern would never be attracted to, a person that would be least expected or whatever. In my dream, he pursued this chick. And I woke up and he's sleeping like a baby. Just laying there sleeping, and I'm like, you jerk. Because everything inside of me, it was so real. Now, why would it be more real to me? Here's the thing. The only thing that can bring it back to what's real is a reality check. And I had nobody to give me a reality check. And you can't get one from the guy who just broke trust while I was sleeping. Whatever. But because that was the feeling. But if I take it back, that's what I grew up with. I grew up with people leaving people. I grew up in relationships where I found out the whole relationship was a lie. Or in my own personal family as I was a kid, people were lying about those relationships. And all of a sudden you just wake up one day and it's like that dream, like, I thought this is what was real and this is what's real. It's very shocking. It's very, whatever. So now, that's years ago. I'm going to be 60. That's so years ago. Yeah, but when you go into certain areas, you'll know if you don't have closure on that because you don't have the reality check to be able to give it that's believable to yourself. You ever try to give yourself a reality check? That was just a dream. No, it wasn't. No, serious. It was just a dream. You should just get over it. Just breathe, whatever. And you tell yourself that the deeper the trauma, the harder it is to get a reality check. I've had people literally just call me or text me during the day and they'll say, I had this dream or this occurrence. This is what I saw. What's real about this? Well, some things I don't know what's real, but other things are like, yeah, obviously that's not real. But it feels real to them and they have to have a reality check. Did anyone here ever need a reality check? And just getting with somebody who says, I need you to look at me. It's going to be okay. All of a sudden you're like, it'll help pull you out of it. But many times we will, let's say it's a relational issue, you've been hurt in relationship, and now you're going to try to get that person who's your only person in the world to give you a reality check, and yet they're part of the pain that you're suffering. That doesn't end up real, does it? And even if they're being real, even if they mistreated you years ago and now they're treating you well, you're looking at them and you're like, I don't know if I can buy that. Right. It's hard. Right. But in order to overcome abuse, we have to start making choices. Choices to trust ourselves, right? The more intense the incident is, the more we're like, I really got to really think about this, right? But there are things that you come to the point of like, you know what, I'm not going to fear that anymore. Like my husband, really, Mr. Fernandez, that's what I call him sometimes, Fernandez Peltz. That is his Spanish name. And I'm Maria, right? So anyways, a little insight on our relationship. Anyways, so anyways, we're snowmobiling where there's a big hill in North Dakota. Believe it or not, it was near their farm. And we drive to the top of it. Now, we've been in the mountains driving and stuff like that. A lot of people picture that like you're riding the edge and you can see thousands of feet. No, they got trails that go through the woods just like they do here. But you're aware that you're in the mountains, right? And there are some dangerous areas they'll try to help you avoid. But this, in North Dakota, you can stand on one of those hills. It's a long way down, and you can see for miles because there's like no trees. That gives a different sensation. I was raised with trees and trails that you had to navigate through. So my brain is winding through these trails, making sure you don't hit a tree, making sure you don't get caught up in something, get your snowmobile stuck or whatever it is. But this is just open, big drifts, and you're, okay. Everyone's like, let's go down this thing, right? I can see a barbed wire fence way down, right? But he knows, he's driven this how many times. He knows he can stop and how to do it or whatever. And he said, let's just go. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't think I want to do it. And he gets off his snowmobile and he looks, he goes, yeah, you can do that. And he's giving me the whole speech or whatever. And all of a sudden he just shoves the snowmobile. And I go over the edge. That was not nice, Fernandez. Not very nice at all. And I don't know if I was more scared or ticked, because sometimes you get angry, because anger says I want something to stop, right? So the anger comes up because you're scared, you know? And he's thinking I'm going to have fun, because now it's going to prove how I could do this, and you can just go down this, and it'll be fine. And so I'm navigating, and like steam starts coming out my ears, I'm sure. Snow was melting all around. And then I get to the bottom, and I turn the snowmobile like this, and he just drives up next to me. What do you think, babe? And I'm like, if you ever do that. I mean, my whole body was shaking. It was like, it took me a bit to get the adrenaline, not just because of the anger, because of the fear. And here's what I tried to figure out. So if I come from a background of abuse that's someone else taking control, like sexual abuse, that's what that felt like to me. I have no control at all. Now get me to a point where you go down first, I'll navigate. I might even follow your trail. But I get to make the choice. And he thought he was being very loving to help. He wasn't being mean. He was just trying to, love me like, hey, this is so much fun. We always do this. Just go. And I'm like, no, I'm not going. And I went anyway, right? So needless to say, I stayed mad for a really long time. I stayed mad. Another thing I don't like, I'm naming things, right, to be real so that you can be real with yourself, right? Is if someone's walking with me, and, we're just going to walk down the street together or whatever, and they're trying to navigate to move me out of a certain situation, but they put their hand between my shoulder blades and push. You can touch my arm, you can touch my leg. When it's my husband, he can slap my butt if he wants, but not between my shoulder blades. This class is so real. Anyway, I'm having fun. So there's something about, I don't actually know what that goes back to, but it's a feeling of being pushed, like you'd be pushed in and out of a room or something like that. I don't know what it goes back to, but I hate the sensation. So I've had much privilege to work on that. And I'll be like, yeah, go ahead and put your hand there, honey. We'll just walk down the sidewalk. And it isn't like he's shoving. He's just going, come on, let's go, babe. And he's touching between my shoulder blades. And I'm like, and my back will stiffen. And I'm like, if it's a porcupine, it'd be like, you know what I mean? And so, but I don't want to stay like that, especially if I can't even identify what, I'm going to live this way the rest of my life. So I got to work it through. Ish. Sounds silly, but it means something to me. Because what you feel, and your feelings are real to you. And the worst thing you can tell a person is, oh, come on, you shouldn't feel that way. Dr. Phil, we all know him, says that's emotional rape. That kind of conversation is emotional rape to the other person. Because here's the thing, they already do feel that way. And their feelings are real to them. So instead, it should be said something like, I'm not sure why you're feeling like that. I'm not feeling that, but I'm trying to understand you. That really hurt you deeply, didn't it? That really scared you, didn't it? And to acknowledge them will actually dislocate the adrenaline, if that makes sense. It'll bring the adrenaline down. And so I got my stories. I'm sure you have some stories of things that you might think, yeah, that happened, but that doesn't affect me now. Or we'll take our worst story and say, that was the abuse, when really there were small things that happened that felt like you didn't have any control, and it set it up inside of you, that victim feeling, and you actually navigate certain things, like where you sit at a restaurant. Where do you sit at a restaurant? Are you the person with your back to the door? Or are you always facing the door? I have to face the door. Am I sitting there totally shaken? I gotta face the door, and if I don't, I can't eat. No, I don't have a problem eating. But it's one of those things where I'm facing the door because I want to assess what's going on. And I'll be listening, and then I'm listening. Sometimes it's like 4 conversations. And it gets really intense for me if I don't intentionally try to shut that off, because I'm trying to spend time with my husband or whatever, but I'll start hearing somebody being mean to their spouse, sitting in the booth behind, and I'm like, okay, I'm trying to eat here. And other people, if they're sitting there, never hear that at all. Why am I sensitive to that? Because I grew up with that, right? And so something either has to be done about it, or I'm not going to sit in it. That's how I feel. Anybody else identify? Right, so we'll sit in a certain spot because then you can assess what's going on. That's way over here, and they're like, I'm going to pay attention to my surroundings. But if you move to way over here, you're in absolute fear to even sit in a restaurant. There better not be hardly any people. I'm not doing this. So what we're trying to do is get it closer over here where we pay attention to our surroundings, and we have some form of control called boundaries. Yeah? Now, seasons of your life. People resist seasons of their life because they saw their parents or caretakers go through different seasons of their life and they didn't do it well. They didn't age well. They didn't graduate well. They didn't figure out that next job. They didn't figure out how to let their kids grow up. They didn't figure out how to be an empty nester. And you'll have some people that have, the sticker on their car. They're like, I'm spending my kids' inheritance. I'm out of here, all this kind of stuff. I'm finally free. All this stuff. You're like, you're talking about your kids. Chill it, my friend. That's rude. Am I not right? That's rude. At the same time, there is an adaptation that has to go. And if you never watch that work in normality, there is going to be anxiety. You know, you start to feel like, I got gray hairs. And you're looking in the mirror. Well, what happened to the people before you that got gray hair? I don't know, but it was bad. Well, what was bad? I don't know. You're just not supposed to cross over in that. It's like, I don't know what to do. People aren't going to want me. I mean, it can go so many different ways, right? Or you can be comfortable in your own skin. Huh? Now, if I didn't color my hair, this is me being honest, so you can be honest, I would probably look like a skunk / some kind of alien something. Because wherever there's the white patches from the vitiligo, it's completely white hair. So it's really interesting. If I let it grow out, it's all brown because my original hair color is brown, you know. And it'll just be don't need color, and all of a sudden, color is needed. It's the craziest thing. I have to be comfortable in my own skin, though. I'm probably going to be a little distracted if I go out speaking and I got, you know, a stripe here and a round circle there. That's going to be a little bit much. Except for now, the younger generation, you know, the ones that are coming out of high school right now, that is so cool. If you have vitiligo, they're like, that is so special and so cool. I'm like, actually, it's not in my Father's kingdom. You know, that's how I feel about it. It's out of order. It's autoimmune. Get out of my body. Right? So to be comfortable in my own skin when I go for an interview or I'm doing something new or whatever, I have to be self-aware of where I'm at. Because on a good day, none of that bothers me. But if I get triggered by some past traumas or whatever, things start to bother me. And then this will bother me, which leads into that bothering me. And the next thing you know, everything bothers me. And that's when I knew I need self-care. I got to get off the ride and reboot, right? Myself. So, do you ever talk about trauma in a way where you tried to get help and now you feel like you've talked about it so much? My Lord, if we ever bring it up again, I'm done. Like, how long are we going to talk about this? And yet, you're still missing components, and it's frustrating because we do want it over with, right? So here's what I figured out in my almost 60. You know, gray under this color. I've been around long enough. I'm not as old as dirt, but we're getting there. And so there's something, what I figured out is not to resist these things so much that it's like, I have no control, and why is this always happening to me? And you come from that angle, rather than I have victory over whatever's going on in this moment. Right? And if I can't stay in the victory zone, then I need to get off the ride long enough to regroup my poop. Right? Because if you don't, then one thing will add to another thing, which will add to another thing. And next thing you know, you're not in reality. I give people reality checks all the time. That's one of my jobs. It is, because I know how bad it's needed for me. You know, and it's even harder though if they've lost sense of reality about themselves and what to trust, and now we add a drug to that loss. You ever try to give somebody a reality check? Shane, have you done that before? While they're high? Yeah, but that's not true. You don't understand. No, I'm trying to tell you it's not true. I need you to look at me. Could you, you know, you're going to go round and round for a long time. Yeah. I've even learned to almost sound mean and be like, you know what? I can't talk to you right now. You're not yourself. So I will schedule that 2 days from now. And I need you to drink a lot of water and do what you need to do, right? Walk some things off, go for a while. And then I'll talk to them, and they're still, you know, a little bit where you're like, yeah, but that's not real. But they can sort of grab onto some things. Yeah. So it's everything has to slow down. Everything has to come to a place. of like, what's reality? Do you trust yourself with reality? No, I want to escape reality. I need to leave reality. Where are you going? Some place you don't know of? Where demons rest their heads, waiting for you? Yeah, that's going to be a lot safer over there. Yeah, where are you going, man? I got a place I can go. Okay, I'm sure you do, but it's not safe. But I don't feel safe here right now. Well, let's work on that. No escape. Let's work on that. And so reality in the moment is, look, you have a problem. Look, this is how this is working. Whatever that reality is, we can't, as a helper, veer from that reality. I've watched people do that where they try to show, well, yeah, we know you're going through, and like mamby-pamby the situation, like, hey, that's not what's real. What's real is you almost died last night. That's what's real. What's real is you're about to throw your life away, about to lose your kids, about to lose the relationships that are important to you. Did you know that's what's real? Oh, it's hard to hear. And some people believe that, if you talk to somebody like that, that's going to trigger them, and they're already triggered. And they have no reality because they're triggered. They're on the run because they're triggered. Yeah. And so you think it, you do it, you might not even thought it, you might do it and then think about it later. That's called no impulse control. And that comes from anxiety and stress. So we have to face the fact that abuse has happened. We didn't get certain memos. That was the one I hated. Like, I didn't get that memo. I didn't get that when I was a kid. If I had that, then it wouldn't have produced all this. And I'd be mad about that for weeks because I should have had that, right? So-and-so over there, they have it easier because they got the memo. Well, if your parents or whoever your caretakers were didn't have the memo to give, you can't milk a turnip. You can't get something from somebody when they don't have it. So eventually we have to face the fact like, yeah, that wasn't going to happen. Cry about that, bring it to close, forgive yourself and them, and now I'm going to move on because it's taken up too much space, time, and energy in my brain. I learned that phrase not from some book. I learned that from Jesse. And he was pretty young when he said it to me. He was about to go in the military and everything and planning to get married. And some of the things that were happening in the past, that happened in high school or whatever, were still bugging him. And then just one day he goes, I just realized that's taken up too much space, time, and energy in my brain. I was like, that's genius. Because I'm a visual, and I saw it like a movie. Like there's all this hoarding over in this side of the brain, and I got to collect more. I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but I got to collect. No, just let it go. Take it to a thrift store. Throw it in the garbage. Whatever you got to do in your file system when you unpack it, but get it out of there. And when you do that, it makes so much more space for learning trust. Oh. But when you're going through the first phase of choosing to learn trust, isn't that scary? Because you start to lose touch with reality. It will take you to the only reality you have ever known, your strongest abuse. It'll take you there. When you ask your soul, like, what are we going to do? Your soul's like, well, this is what happened. Well, yeah, but what about this now? No, you better be careful. And it will give this, like, I'm about to be abandoned. I'm about to be left. And you will feel the sensation like it's happening right now. And it's not what's real. A breakup in a relationship or a relationship that doesn't work out or someone just puts it on pause, like, let's just, all right, we're going to pause that for now, because they need to work through things or whatever, it can feel like our toughest abuse. They're trying to take all the control. They're trying to leave me. They never wanted me to begin with. This whole thing was a betrayal and a lie, and we'll just keep going like that. But we're basing it on the past reality, not on the now. So sometimes both men and women get hormonal, but women, we have that cycle that we have to deal with. And so what ends up happening is there's usually about a month out of the month, a month, that's what it feels like, a week out of the month that you can lose reality quicker. And what you feel in that week is so real. I'm the fattest, ugliest person, and no one cares, and all that kind of stuff. And then when that hormone shifts, you're fine. You're like, sorry, let's not talk about what happened last week. Let's just forget. Because it's embarrassing. Because when it felt real, it was so stinking real. Right? But then when you come down off that, it's like, Sometimes women, when they first get pregnant, there's such a hormone shift that you come home and you're like, who is she? That is not my wife. And crying this, doing that, or whatever. But what they're feeling in that moment feels so real. And it's real to the soul. The best thing you can do is not be like, let me give you a reality check. But it's more of like, wow, you're feeling a lot of stuff. Let me help you. Can I hold you? What do you need? And here's the crazy part. Guys need to know what women need. I don't know where chicks came up with that. Well, if he loved me, he'd know exactly what I need. I shouldn't have to tell him. Yeah, you do need to tell him. He's not a mind reader, right? He's not a palm reader. He's not the prophet of your life. You have to say, I'm hurting right now and I'm scared. Well, what do you need? I don't know is the answer a lot of times. I don't know. Well, can I hold you? And a lot of times we find out that's exactly what was needed. But we don't know how to get that because we're interpreting like, I have all this feeling and it's so real. You're not going to be here for me either. And suddenly they're like, I just got here and you're the enemy. Right. You're probably going to leave me, get out. It's all of that. It's not real. Right. But it feels real to you. And then because it's so big inside and you're experiencing it, you're reliving it, just like a flashback. When you have a flashback, like the dream I had where I was mad at Vern because I felt like he was with this chick. Well, in the dream he was. So that's proof. No. And he acted like he didn't even care in the dream. I was like, you got to be kidding me. Let's roll this. It was like that. Like, I'm going to fight about this. And so there was something about that was so real in me, but it wasn't real because of the moment. It wasn't real because of the dream. It was real because I saw it and I felt it role model to the people I love around me. It happened to the people around me and it hit me so hard. And I carried that pain for years. And so obviously, if I have a dream, the dream's going to be real. We've gone all this time without this happening to me. It's happened to everybody I know around me. So why wouldn't this be? Maybe God's telling me. Your brain will run the craziest stuff. Then when the emotion of it leaves and the adrenaline leaves, you're like, oh, sorry, babe. Right? Now, he could have been like, you ever say that to me again? Run, run. He said, I just want to give you a reality check because he believes in reality checks too. It's never going to happen. Right? I love you. And then you have to look them in the eye when they're saying that because they're giving you a reality check. Isn't it weird that when you have fear because of trauma and someone tries to give you a reality check, you will not let your eyes meet their eyes? It'll be like, they're speaking into your soul, where is the non-reality in your soul? Based on a reality that did happen or your perception of something that happened. Because some things we saw when we were growing up was so real or whatever, and then later you find out and they're like, that's not what happened. That is not what happened. This is what happened. And you're like, I didn't know that. And then you realize maybe everything that I saw wasn't as real as I thought it was. And so it's good to find those things out and get reality checks. So who do you trust to give you a reality check? First person is God. But we're like, I don't know if I want to hear from him. Because he's going to tell me something so real. I don't know if I can handle it right now. And there is a part of us that is trained for trauma. So we're trained to cry about it for 3-4 days. And he's like, I got something I can speak in. Not now. I'm still crying. We have to ask for more time to mourn. I know you can fix this right now, but I really need to mourn for another 4 or 5 days. Because it'll feel so odd if I'm just suddenly healed. It'll say that thing wasn't that important. Same thing with forgiveness. If I choose to forgive right now something horrible that happened to me when I was a kid, and it just dawns on me, I feel convicted about it, and I let it go. that's really belittling what happened. That'll be the sensation that'll go through. Like, can you just forgive that? Like, maybe you don't realize what really happened. Let's talk about that. Let's refeel that, your soul will say. Because your subconscious is there to protect you, and it protects you with the facts of the past, not the facts of the future. It speaks to your now based on the past. So there has to be a brain interrupt. So I was in a class in California. It was so fun. And this was years ago. And people that they flew in to do this class were from Hawaii. And they were demonstrating psychological mind interrupt. And at first I thought, that's going to be really annoying to people. When you're cingulate in your brain, your will chooser gets stuck. No matter who speaks into your life, it'll just keep rehearsing it. Yeah, but you don't understand. Yeah, but this is what happened. Yeah, but, and it'll just keep doing that. And the people that are trying to help give the reality check are like worn out. And so it'd be the craziest thing. Now, don't try this at home because there's a whole technique around it, and you might really tick somebody off. But they got people in the different groups, and they had somebody share their deepest pain. Now, it's going to sound a little morbid, but man, did it ever work. This lady starts sharing in our group, and these are all, counselors, and they're getting ready as she's sharing her painful thing to all just be like, oh, because that's what people like to counsel many times. It's like, let me help you. And like, I'm your answer kind of thing. And they're like, but you're not their answer. So don't posture yourself like that. Okay, so she starts sharing it, and she just starts shaking. And the facilitator, he's standing there and go, tell me more. And all of a sudden he touches her arm. And she's like, no, go ahead, tell me more. And then as she's talking, he goes, biscuits. And she's like, and then, well, tell me more. And then, I like pizza. It was the craziest thing. In the end, she starts laughing, and she goes, what are you doing to me? Is this some kind of psychological trick? But all he was doing was rerouting the reality of her brain. But in order to do that, she had to let go of the thought pattern to come over here and hook onto this. What does pizza have to do with that? Well, you just left this thought and came over here. But if I say, but that's not how it is. No, it is. Right? And we're stuck. You ever have a kid who does that? And you're like, oh my gosh, that went on for an hour. I've tried it with one of my grandkids. They didn't know I was doing it. And I just say something. They're like, stop, Grandma. But it went from crying to like, yeah, but that really did bother me. And I'm like, I could see where that would bother you. But they didn't know I did a mind interrupt on them. That's how the brain works. So if you see me do that in a service, be like, what is she? What? You'll know. I'm trying to interrupt this person's brain. And what do drugs do? Or forms of alcohol is a drug. Too much caffeine and whatever. What it does is it'll tell certain parts of your brain, every drug is different, what it tells it, to get stuck on a pattern. Be stuck on that pattern. You're going to think that thought or whatever. Well, here's your answer. It will not give answers anywhere else but the answer that you gave it the first time. And as soon as the drug is gone, you're back on the repetition. And there's nobody to give you an interrupt. Pizza. I saw a fox this morning, and they're like, what are you? Stop. Yeah, just something they're like, well, are you, belittling or whatever? And then when you explain to them, no, you're stuck on a thought, and I'm trying to get you off of it. And let's take a look at it from the outside in, instead of being stuck on the inside on this thought, this thought, this thought. That's called your cingulate is stuck. Yes?
What about I'm putting myself in that position on both sides and thinking about it. And I could see it, like, well, I don't really know because I know that I'm a different person than I was.
Yep.
And I'm thinking of this scenario. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you ever get, like, before when I get so caught on what the real problem was because of the situation I'm in, and it goes all the way back to something someone else did that's irrelevant to the fact that I made my choice to get involved in the first
Right.
place. And half the time that may work, but
Yeah.
half the time it may be like, you just not care about what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Because I stay stuck on it. What about then, though?
Yeah. So here's what happens. When they do this, it's in a counseling therapy session. It isn't just randomly. Like I wouldn't do that to here. Well, I might, but no, in class, especially if I know you'd just even in a small way, because I already know, well, I got to talk through the drug to get to you. And you're already on a roll of, and that's how it is, and that's how it is, and that's how it is. And so there's somehow the people who want to help many times, though, they get in repetition with them. Give the same answer over and over. I told you this is what you need to do, and I told you because our belief is I want you to stop repeating this because I'll know that you're whole once you stop repeating this. So I have to come up with the amazing phrase, the amazing thing, and I'm going to try that thing over and over. And then after a while, you'll quit trying to help the person because you can't find an amazing thing to get their cingulate unstuck. So that's where this therapy, they studied the brain and they're like, Pizza Hut, and you're like, no, I'm talking about how my father, yeah, I know, monkeys are cool. And they just do it enough to be like, but you have to be drug-free, right? And we have to let it loop enough where we see that's the life command, is what's called a life command. And a life command is something you believe is truth to you, but it's very much a lie from the pit of hell. But it's truth to you. That's how you feel. Anyone looking in would be like, that's not of God, right? That's not cool. So it'll loop, and we're trying to interrupt the loop because all crisis demands change, all change demands decision, and all decisions have to have options. But if your cingulate is stuck, you ain't looking for any other option. Help me, but don't tell me all those things. Well, then how can I help you? I need you to understand this. I need you to loop with me. And we'll talk about it night and day, looping. I can remember as a kid sitting, just coming in from doing chores, come in from the barn or whatever. I'm making a snack, and my uncle's, he's in the table like you do when you're an alcoholic. He's like, I need to look up like this. And same phrase every time. Same phrase. And I remember as a kid trying to, give him reality checks, do different. I didn't know that's what I was doing, but like, well, you should try this or you whatever. And he'd be like, yeah, you don't know nothing. And then he'd loop again. Well, now I know better. I'm not going to loop with somebody who's drunk. I'm not going to get on that circus ride. You're on the ride. And when you're ready to get off the ride, I'll help you make a choice. And I'll say, here's your options. Let's get off that thought and choose some. I can't choose. Why not? I don't trust myself. While we're talking about how someone else hurt us. Because inwardly, we punish ourselves for not having the boundary to, like somehow we should have been amazing. If somebody cheats on you, you should have been amazing to head that off at the pass. You should have known, you should have been a mind reader, you should have dressed nicer, you should have, could have, whatever it is. And you'll come up with 1,000 things you could have done. When really, they do what they do. Why? Because they wanted to or they lost control. Why do we have poor behaviors? We wanted to or we lost control. Or both. That makes sense? So next week we'll be talking again about, how can we rebuild trust with ourselves? We have to learn how to love ourselves. We have to know that if we were the only person with us on a desert island, could I live with me? Or would I need to self-medicate just to hang out with me? It's like, I need drink something here. You know what I'm saying? It's like, make some coconut wine and get out, There's something that needs to be thought of like that. When you put yourself in that scenario, it'll help give you a reality check of like, actually, I don't think I like me. All those bad experiences didn't like me, didn't think highly of me, didn't think enough of me, wasn't valuing me. So why should I like me? And we're going to talk about that, rebuilding the trust. So if you're going through a phase in life, my children, when they got married, it was like, okay, the first one got married. I'm cool with that. And then bam, bam, other two right in a row. You're like, what are you guys doing? Like, where do you think you're going? And it's weird because we're those people who had the video camera and we videoed everything. Battle of the Bands they were in, all the stuff, right? And basketball and all that. We have that all. But the little kids that we videotaped, I can't find them kids. My brain has looked for those kids. Especially moms, I'm talking about. You're like, where's... And you got their little nicknames or whatever. Where are they? Where did they go? I don't know. Somehow they just disappeared over time. And then you had those high schoolers, and you're like, I remember we used to do this. Like I managed the bands, and Felicia would sing, or North was the name of the band. They would travel or whatever, and just get out and minister and have fun or whatever. And there'd be the battle of the bands. All their friends would gather, and how's that chick, right? And then I don't know where it went. If you don't know how to move from one season to the next, it will bring up absolute feelings of abandonment. It's like, this is dangerous. Because the season you're leaving was the season you were in, but have you ever been in the new one? No, I've never been here before. And anything I've never been in before is like, then what losses will I incur there? Because I can't find the little kid. And don't know where the teenagers are at, except for on the video. Now, who are these people? The ones that give me advice. The ones where I'm like, I'm not going to say much because I don't know what I'm talking about. But they do. The ones that are raising their children and you're just like, right? Do they teach classes on moving from season to season? I'm always threatening writing a book on that. Because whenever I ask that, people are like, nope. You're just supposed to figure it out. Just go. It's like sending your kid to college, like, oh, I'll sign you up for this. You just go figure out the rest. Really? That's why they're getting drunk most of the time. That's how they escape that I don't trust myself and I don't trust this. That's why they change their major 5 to 6 times. Because they don't know really why they're there to begin with. Interesting, huh? So I say all this to just get us thinking about if a big part that happened was the trauma that happened, it set it up. The non-reality areas try to come back and haunt us, and we got to give them reality checks. But if we don't trust us, or we don't have a group to trust, or a person to trust, that we can look and say, is this real right now? Because I feel like everyone hates me. Have you ever said something like that to somebody? People say that to me all the time, and I'll be like, look at me. That's not true, because I know it's not true, because I don't feel that way, and you said everybody. Yeah, the brain goes, oh, that's true. Right? It's enough of a reality check to be like, let's think down some of these other options. Let's look at a different road to travel. Amen? And there's no better reality check than the Word. But here's the thing, believe in faith, we're going to talk about on Saturday night some more. Part of that is you have to believe in the integrity of God. If you have any area where you think he's going to betray you, he's going to lie to you, I don't know if his word really is true in that area anymore, even though it says he's the same yesterday, today, and forever. And it says in Nehemiah that he's not a man that he can lie. But if we have that, like, I'm going to get hurt, this is a new thing I would have to trust, then the word does not jump out to you the same. Have you ever noticed that? In your best days when you feel like you're kind of like trusting, all of a sudden you're like, revelation's coming up out of this Bible. This is awesome, and you get really excited. But on a day where the past abuse is triggered, you're just like, I don't know, he's telling me to do this, and it's another thing I have to perform. Your view of what he's saying is totally different. And that's what can happen, when you're trying to learn how to trust. Do we trust that we're loved? You have to trust the integrity of God. People will always let you down because they're dealing with the same thing we are. Not because they're jerks, because they're dealing with the fact they don't know if they trust God's integrity. They might not even know him, and we expect them to act like they do, and then we're mad when we get hurt. We have to change our perspective, how we look at this. So, and if you're a runner, which we've talked about being a runner before, if you're a deer in the headlight, and you got to go across this thing that you've never been across because it's foreign to your pathways, It's going to be scary. Maybe get with somebody who's already crossed that, and they know timing, and they know those different things. That would be helpful, right? Don't just be like, I don't know, I'm the squirrel. Go, and try to come back, and you're like, I didn't make it for some reason, right? And then there's something to getting a reality check and giving yourself a reality check. Like, I trust to believe that when I say it was an accident when I came down the chute of that silo. I should have wore different boots, so I can own that. I didn't know, right? And, it's just one of those things that happens. Stuff like this does happen. I'm not going to beat myself up over it, though. I shoulda, coulda, woulda, and I can't trust me over whatever. What I do trust is that no matter what it is, God will walk me through it. I got up off that floor. I'm still here. Thank you, Jesus. Could have hit a rock just the right way, punctured my lungs. We're up in the mountains, can't get out of there in time, bleed to death. I mean, there's so many could-haves the other way. But I'm still here, right? Right. And so let's stand and we'll pray together. We're going to agree together. Because this is a big subject, and I just chose 2 nights, but I kind of feel like it might morph into different things, different stages of working through it. Because people go, yeah, I need to do that. But when you go to do it, it's hard. It is not like I should just be able to pull this off. Because we've been not trusting ourselves for years, and we can be the runner, the fighter, fight, flight, or freeze. So don't fly away. Stay in the moment. Don't allow yourself to not be grounded. Stay in the moment. If you can't do anything else with all that emotion, cause yourself to be like, I'm freaking out right now, but I'm going to stay. I'm going to stay put. I'm going to stay with the people who are surrounding me. I am going to stay in this church service. Because it happens sometimes. People, they're not grounded. They fly, and they got to go. They got to go now. Right? The best thing you can do is to challenge that by just stay power. You're giving yourself a reality check. And this is what will happen. When you leave, you can say to yourself, I didn't die. Because the emotion of fear says, you stay here, you're going to die. If you don't deal with this, you're going to die. If you don't get some drugs right now, this is going to fall apart. No, I have stay power. And then you realize, I made it another day. I didn't die. I actually don't believe you, subconscious. You're talking trash. Father, we just come before you in the mighty name of Jesus. And we thank you that you're walking all of us through seasons of our life. Through the story of our life, through those avenues that we've learned not to trust because we've been hurt. We choose to forgive those people because apparently they were hurt too. Hurting people hurt people. Damaged people damage people. Confused people will spread confusion. It's just how it works. So thank you for being the light in our life, Lord God, where you're bringing us up to a place where we can see things and discern things. And even what we see sometimes is so painful. Give us stay power. Even in that moment, if we've done all to stand, it's like, I don't know how to stand right here and stay put in this moment. I give it over to you, God. Stand therefore. But I'm not doing anything. Yeah, you are. You're standing in one spot, causing yourself to be grounded. Stay put, stay put, stay put. I speak that over everybody and those who will be watching online. Stay put and trust him that you'll make another day in the same spot. And when the anxiety goes down, now we can talk about moving forward. In the mighty name of Jesus, and everyone says, amen. I want to tell you that Jim Isaacson has now moved here and will be sharing his testimony at Word of Life at 10 a.m. this Sunday. If you can't make it, probably should watch it online. When he was 15 years old, he died of spinal meningitis and went to hell. And I had the privilege of praying over somebody that was fighting cancer, and I brought him with today. Ooh, the anointing. in that house. We stayed about an hour. It was just, right? And so it'd be great just to have you hear his story. Even if you can't make it out, just wordoflifeandmen.org. Okay? Have a blessed week.